Hey Jenna, this is Rob Fleming. I'm back with your second scheme here. I brought it into PowerPoint. I'm going to make some comments on your scheme here, which is very different than your first one, which I really appreciate. This one will be a little bit more difficult to do an energy model of because you've got multiple buildings, which I think is a good thing to explore actually because it's a very different one than the more compressed one that you had before. And thinking about, I'm going to try to work from different perspectives here. So and working from the systems point of view, and in this case I'm looking at spatial systems or spatial organization, just basic functional stuff, trying to figure out how someone would enter your building if I was from the public, and this is always a key for a school. And the first thing I noticed, one, is that you have this corridor here, and I would probably replace those corridors and just put overhangs like outdoor pathways that people could walk on. Instead of office, what I would put here is I would just say entry. And so there's one place that everybody comes into and gets fed into. And then what I would also do is think about not having these doors here and having a little gate here that opens and closes in the morning, so that this really becomes an outdoor gathering space, which could be pretty darn cool, I think. And let's see, how do I just erase that very quickly? Doesn't matter. Okay, so I don't think you need this. I think that the other Mequon school has no corridors at all, and when you don't have corridors, what happens is things get a lot easier to use. So for example, this guy right here probably doesn't have to be here. So this could be like a covered space that's indoor outdoor that students can walk from the entry and walk down here and go into a classroom. And yeah, it gets cold, but that's not unusual. There are plenty of schools around the world where people walk outside. Philadelphia University, for example, students walk from class to class. So I think what you need here is you need a big old wall. So now I'm going to go from the perspective of safety and equity. So there's a feeling of safety there. I don't know if that's spelled right. That wall makes this little garden kind of very precious, right? And now what happens is this is outdoor. You can kind of walk by here and come right into this courtyard right now, and the auditorium feeds into that. So I think there's some really strong things going on there. I also like, from a culture's perspective, I'm jumping all over the place, your community garden here really says a lot about that. One thing that I think you're going to need to support that from a functional point of view is you might need a little shed or some sort of storage / sink space. You might need something to support that a little bit. So, oh, and remember, all your doorways open out, and auditoriums always have double doors, right? So you'd have a lot of double doors here. And what's nice is that the auditorium opens out under this covered space or out into here, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to switch my pen color because this could get very confusing pretty quickly. Now, the bathrooms look really big, and I want you to go back and look at your program from a systems point of view and tell me if that really is what you were intending here. They're in a good location because they do serve sort of what I'm considering to be the center of the campus. And the fact that this office is not connected to this office from an internal cultural perspective is probably it's a little bit of a problem. So you may have to move that down and move these bathrooms down, which makes them less central. However, we had talked about getting a water collection zone down here somewhere. Maybe the bathrooms being in this corner can feed stormwater, speaking of systems, into that space. Now clearly you're not getting the big open outdoor space, although this is a pretty big space. You're getting lots of little courtyards, which I think could be pretty exciting. It almost makes me want to put a little hallway here, a little outdoor indoor hallway where I can connect up to this courtyard, which I think is very nice, by the way. And I see you're doing some nice things with that. And again, you might want to think about having a covered walk that winds around this so that people can kind of stay dry, right? But they're still really outside, which I think is pretty cool. So this becomes green space, and I'm going to use my, see if I can get better control of this. So now I've got this nice little green, oh, I want to get a different kind of pen, I'm sorry. So now I've got nice green, oh, darn, you stink. I'm so sorry. You deserve better from me. So I got green space here, I've got green space here, I've got green space here. And this kind of reminds me of, and this is sort of, I would call this not green space here, I call this urban space. So I might actually give that a yellow color, meaning this would be a hardscape space where people, this will be paved like a sidewalk. And and what will happen here is this could also be covered or not, or maybe it's just covered along there. That's more of a hardscape. That's hardscape there. This is hardscape, right? This is hardscape. This is hardscape. So part of what we do in architecture is we define how things work, and you might even have a hardscape return here and here. And look at that. That is your circulation diagram. So you have what's sort of called a head house here, or the head of it, and then you have these wings that come down, which then feed into rooms. And you might need a little hardscape there, and you're certainly going to need some there, and you might have some there. Look at that. Actually, so this scheme is really kind of interesting. You don't have the big play area. And I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but I think that if you can get control of the entry here and block that off there, I think you've got some real potential here. The auditorium can open to the public, and I'm really not sure I'm liking this bus here. You know, I think what you could do is, let me get my pen back here and see if we can't solve that. And again, I know you're not a site planner, so I'm not expecting miracles. But and you are showing some more context here, by the way, which is good. So if your sidewalk is like that, I think you do a much more shallow bus drop off here. And they're going to come back in this way to enter. So I think your bus drop off is way too deep. And then remember, you're going to need turn-ins here to get in and out of this little parking court. This parking court's a little awkward in that you typically wouldn't have that space there, and even this space, dicey, but you can get in and out with that. And you know, going back to the hardscape thing, this is probably your green space here, right? This is all softscape, and this is probably softscape. This is hardscape, all of that. So not the nicest way to enter a building, but if you could find a way maybe to bring the green space up a little bit, I'm not sure. In any sense, you know, this scheme has a lot of potential. Yeah, and I would get rid of that bathroom. I see that you have a bathroom there. I would get rid of that. I really think it's important for people to walk out. Anyway, you need that for fire probably, or not. But I think it's pretty important that people get a sense that there's a garden out here. And then, of course, you're going to need a low wall here, something to protect against just random people walking in, or a fence, and you'll probably have a gate here. So what's interesting about this project is the main entry to the building from a cultural standpoint in terms of the neighborhood. When we did the analysis of the neighborhood, this corner was pretty critical. And what I think's happening here, what I would look at is having a sort of farmer's market or a shed here, another maybe head house that is covered, that you could sell the produce from this, or it could be used for other kinds of community engagement, which is another reason I want to move the bus down over and over a bit. I want to keep the bus, because what you can do is you can double dip with that space. See that right there? Boom. Now you've got your buses in, so buses can come in like this, and they can be buses, right? So that's not bad. And in fact, some schools would have a little covering, have a little covered area that when you walk in, you get off the bus and you get off the bus, and if it's raining, you're covered. So there's lots of indoor-outdoor spaces. It can get cold, but you're pretty dry when you need to be dry. I think this scheme has a lot of potential. As you understand from a performative or behaviors perspective, having more perimeter walls means, of course, you're going to have more heating and cooling needed because you have more surface area facing the environment. And if there was a way to get some of these breezes coming in, you see, this is the problem with sustainable design. There's so many perspectives to think about. You may have trouble getting some breezes, although I bet you'll get some breezes funneling this way. Your winter winds are coming from this direction, and so you really do need some sort of gate or fence or maybe something solid there, so that because this can become a wind tunnel, and so you want to make sure that can get closed off with a solid. Maybe there's, oh look, there's a big sliding door that slides across there, so when school goes in session, the sliding door closes so that there's some security, and there's a door built into the sliding door. Lots of things to think about here, and I know I'm kind of overwhelming you, but I know that you're really smart and you've really committed yourself to learning these kinds of things. And the more I look at this, the more I think this could be a really interesting project. You know, we did discuss a lot of changes, but let me know what you think. If you want to schedule a one-on-one, I believe tomorrow we're going to meet as a group, and I'll talk a little bit about this scheme tomorrow. So hopefully that helps, and take care.